Welcome back to the Big Rant Show, the real home of progressives. Before we get to the news, a quick little channel update. Starting this week or next, I'm going to be making these long form videos on Monday afternoon. And then I'll be cutting them up into smaller snippets for those people that prefer shorter content throughout the week. That way, I can make longer form videos for those people that prefer longer form. And then I can make short stuff, shorter videos for those people that prefer my older videos where I was making videos 2 or 3 minutes per, one topic per video. I think that's a good way to go forward. Keep views on the channel because right now my views are down because of this whole switching to 1 day a week. And so we're going to try that and see if we can get some of those people back to watching the videos that just don't prefer longer form videos. Now, there's been a lot going on in the news. And last week, Donald Trump was found liable. Him and his Trump organization, along with his children, were found liable for fraud in New York State. And because of that, he is now on trial for a civil lawsuit on how much he owes for that fraud. Now, that trial starts off today. And so it's big news and everything. I don't really care to cover it, but I figured everyone should know what's going on. Donald Trump is on trial for basically to see how much he owes in the fraud case that he was found liable for last week. Now, we'll see how this plays out. It'll play out throughout the fall and winter. It won't be done until the end of December probably because of how this particular case is going to go. And we'll see how it turns out, right? On how much money does Trump actually have to pay? Because it's been reported that not only did he lie to New York State, right? He lied to everybody about how much money he had, about the value of his assets, the value of everything he owned, basically. Remember, when he ran in 2015, he swore he had over $10 billion. But also, when he tried to run for president, as I was learning earlier, he didn't want to have to sign a federal piece of paper because it was under the threat of perjury. It turns out that when he finally signed that piece of paper, his overall wealth magically dropped by 90%. Right? Donald Trump is a fraud. Don't ever let that slip your mind that Donald Trump is nothing more than a fraud. He lives in a fantasy world. He does not live in the world that you or I live in. He lives in some fantasy world somewhere. It doesn't make any sense to anybody else but him. He's been known to say that you shouldn't trust what he says about his finances. Well, what are we supposed to trust? Because he tells us to trust him, but then he lies about his finances. He tells us to trust him, but then he lies about what he's going to do or what he's actually doing. But come December, we'll find out how much money Donald Trump will owe for his fraud in New York State. That trial starts today. And it's just one of those things, right? You just never know with these people. Now, on to other news. The government shutdown was avoided over the weekend, so that much is good news. Now, it's a government shutdown that was almost brought to bear, not because we had to do it, not because it was necessary, not because it affected anything. Right? No. This was all brought on by 20 to 30 people in the U.S. House of Representatives. People like Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene. They came up with an agreement, a bipartisan agreement between the Republicans and the Democrats in May that set the 2024 fiscal year budget with an increase of only 1%. That was an agreed upon amount. That was agreed upon on a bipartisan level from the MAGA people all the way to the far left of the U.S. Congress. The GOP and the MAGA wing of the GOP reneged on that deal. They decided they didn't have to do that, and that they were going to make you suffer for it. They were going to punish you, the American taxpayer, you, the American worker, because they didn't get 100% of what they wanted. At the last minute, there was a deal that stripped out funding for the Ukrainian war, which I completely understood why you would take out that funding. I don't think that funding was necessary to fund our government. That we can get to in another video. But the fact is, the Democrats passed a number of bills, like at least 2, out of the Senate that the House just wouldn't vote on. Because Kevin McCarthy is so indebted to those few little MAGA idiots on the far, far right of the political spectrum here in America that he refused to do it all week. But finally, a bipartisan deal came out without the Ukrainian money in it, and the Democrats in the Senate passed it, the Democrats in the House, and the Democrats and Republicans in the House passed it on a bipartisan basis in both chambers. And President Biden was able to sign it into law before the midnight deadline. Now, we've all done this song and dance before. It's getting tiresome, isn't it? If Republicans are in power, there's a shutdown, or at least the attempt to shut down the government. And there's never a reason or rhyme or reason for it, right? Never. Never a reason for it at all. They act like they're saving the government money, saving the taxpayer money. All a government shutdown does is cost the taxpayer more money. Because every time we don't pay our bills, it hits our credit. And that credit rating for Moody's goes down and down and down every single time this stuff is done. Every single time the Republicans shut down our government, it costs us millions, if not trillions of dollars. Not only in the money that we have to make up for, right? Not only the money we have to pay back later for those federal employees and the military that have to work through these things, but also the extra interest we have to pay every time we don't pay our bills. Our interest payments are more than we owe yearly in debt. At the last time I looked. And so these far-right MAGA nutcases constantly want to shut down the government. They've been doing this since 2010, since the Tea Party came to be. Now, they did it back in the 90s too, but it wasn't every single time, right? They happened occasionally before 2010. Because we used to do this thing called compromise in the U.S. Congress. We used to compromise and get stuff done. Because that's what America does. We come together. We solve our problems. We move on. We negotiate between the sides to come up with the best deal for everybody involved. But that's not what they do anymore. That's not what the far right of the Republican Party is about. The fascist wing of the Republican Party is all about shut down the government, hurt the American worker, and see if they can blame a Democrat for it. In this particular case, it's going to cost Kevin McCarthy his speakership, possibly. Matt Gaetz has said he's going to come for his speakership, remove him from the role. All he needs to get this started is 5 Republican votes to remove McCarthy from the speakership. Now, the thing is, what would happen? right? If they get it started with the 5 Republicans that support uh, removing him from speakership, would the Democrats come to his rescue? It's a big question considering the Democrats and him worked together, along with some Republicans, to get a deal done so the government didn't shut down. So American workers wouldn't be furloughed for now. But Kevin McCarthy may be out of job as Speaker in the very near future. It awaits to be seen whether or not the Matt Gaetz will have the 5 votes to start the process, or if the Democrats will bail him out and lower the threshold for him to be able to remain Speaker, since he did work with us getting this deal done. Now, at the end of the day, it is not a long-term deal. It's a stopgap spending measure. That's all this was. They averted a shutdown for 45 days. In that 45 days, they have to either get their heads out of their asses, or we shut down. The fact is, the Republicans should be held to their agreement. The Republicans agreed to a no more than, I believe it was a 1% increase in the budget. That was the agreement on both sides of the aisle. Nobody got what they wanted out of that deal. That's how compromise works, right? When there's a compromise, people aren't 100% satisfied on both sides. That's what a compromise is. But unfortunately, the MAGA party doesn't understand it. They don't know what compromise is. They think it's a dirty word. Since the Civil War, America has done nothing but come together and solve our problems. No matter how much infighting we had, no matter how much we didn't care for what the other party had to say, what they wanted to do. No matter how much we vehemently oppose the other side, we came together. We made a deal. So he wouldn't hurt the American taxpayer. So he wouldn't hurt the elderly. So he wouldn't hurt the people that rely on government services to get through their day. So federal workers aren't furloughed. So some federal workers aren't forced to work during a shutdown. And worse than that, Congress still gets paid. How is that a thing? I truly believe that Congress should not get to go home when they're getting close to a government shutdown. I do not believe Congress should get paid during a government shutdown. This is also why I believe Congress should be paid minimum wage. So they have to live like the rest of the Americans that they're working for. No bribes, no dark money. The only money that they should be allowed to have for their campaigns is the stuff that directly comes from the American people. Not from businesses, not from corporations, not from shell companies, not from foreign entities. Plain and simple. But for now, for the next 40 some odd days, we're good. It just shouldn't happen. We shouldn't have to do this. But unfortunately, the MAGA wing has some sort of hold over the Republican Party. And it's not reasonable. I mean, as far left as I am, there are people on the left that I would not want trying to make policy. Right? I wouldn't want the far left to get everything it wants every single time we do a bill. Because I believe in compromise. I believe in getting stuff done and not hurting the American people. On Friday, Dianne Feinstein passed away. She was 90 years old, the oldest sitting senator current at the time in Congress. She'd been through a lot, seen a lot, done a lot. and she was, seen as a rather good liberal person. Now, I do know there are things that she has done in her past, or she had done in her past, that were not seen as kind to certain minority groups. And for that, I want to say I'm sorry to those minority groups. But I'm not here to discuss the bad she did. We will discuss those things on a later episode. But Dianne Feinstein had a pivotal role in liberal politics. She fought for gun reform. She fought for women's rights. She fought for those people that didn't have a voice. So Dianne Feinstein, dead at 90. Now, Gavin Newsom has already named her successor. He named her this morning, uh, LaFonza Butler. She's apparently one of the leaders of the Emily's List, a organization aimed at getting Democratic women elected. They push for things like, access to abortion and other women's rights issues. And I think she'll be a good fit for the role for now. She's going to, serve out the rest of the term. You already have a slew of Democrats that are vying for that spot, because before Feinstein passed away, she had already announced that she wouldn't be returning. So there are a lot of Democrats that already thrown their hat in the ring. So we're going to see what happens. But Gavin Newsom did say he was going to appoint an African American woman to Feinstein's spot, if she were to vacate her seat. And so he did exactly that. So LaFonza Butler, I wish you well. I hope you do well in your role. And we'll see what you do. Good luck. Now on to something a little more lighthearted, I guess, than the last story. Have you ever seen those ads when you're like on a phone game, or you're on your phone and an ad comes up and it's like, win thousands of dollars a month playing this game? Well, did you know that most of those are scams? Some people don't know that. Now, I always assumed they were scams. I always thought it was, kind of a stupid thing. But I've spent the last week downloading and looking at different games and seeing the scams that they tried to pull. For example, there was one game I played called Coin Frenzy. It looked like a fun game. It was kind of just fun to do. It was one of those games where, you basically, it's like a poker chip thing. Poker chips fall down, they push them, and then you try to catch them in this cup as it comes back and forth, and all this mess, right? And they say if you can get to a certain threshold, you can take money out of your account, and it'll go straight to your PayPal or Cash App. But most of these are scams. Why? Why do I say they're a scam? Because no, they're not there necessarily phishing your information. They're not stealing your information or anything like that. In most cases, the scam comes after you've earned your money and you're looking to cash out. When you go to cash out, like a Coin Frenzy, what happens? You have to pay $7.95, and people rarely get their money. Like, I have seen report after report of people not getting their money after paying the $7.95. Now, as soon as it told me I owed $7.95 for them to be able to send me money, I knew it was a scam, and I deleted the app. Now, not all these games, games are scams or anything like that. Like, you have some groups that legitimately do pay out. Groups like MistPay, for example. They will pay out in like debit cards or gift cards or whatever. And I think that's kind of cool. I don't know if I haven't gotten far enough into that one to see if they try to charge you But from what I've read, it's one of the more legit organizations that you're going to find that actually help you get money through some of the games you play. I'll let you know further on that particular app if I ever get to a point where I can actually cash out. Because the one thing with misplay is it takes a long time to get points. But if you have any comments on these, let me know. But I just want to let you know that they're out there. These scams are out there. And I don't want people, my viewers, to get scammed by these unscrupulous people. You'll find out that they're all pretty much run by the same people, or they all use the same ads. Because at the bottom of the ads it says um, results may not actually happen. Basically, that you may not get that. It all depends on the ad or the actual rules for the actual app you're using, because they all use the same ads and stuff like that. It seems like just to get you to play their game, where they probably make money on you tapping the screen every time you do something, every time you watch an ad or something like that, and then they want to charge you money to take your money, or the money that you supposedly earned. So just watch out for them. Do your research before you do any of them. Don't don't get don't pay people. Like, if it's legitimate, they're not going to charge you to give you money that you've earned. They're just going to give you the money that you've earned. And or they would take the money out of the winnings, right? Whatever earnings you have, they would take the money out of that if it was legitimate. Any company that wants you to pay them before they will release your money is a scam. Just putting that out there. Also, over the weekend, Brooklyn and and the Bronx were underwater. Over 6 inches of rain fell on Friday in the New York area, as remnants of Ophelia, um, still a tropical storm, were moving away from shore. Apparently, Ophelia connected with another low pressure system, creating a deluge of water that caused a huge problem for people in and around the Bronx and Queens. Some of the people in lower level apartments had to be rescued. Some 28 people had to be rescued in the area. An area known as the Hole, that says they do not have like an actual sewer system, was one of the hardest hit areas because they don't have an actual drainage system. So that area was really inundated with water, and it did not go well for people. It's rather unfortunate how that went, right? Because they've been trying to get it better in that particular area. But unfortunately, there was so much water, there was just not enough way to take care of it. Some of the cities were caught off guard and just not prepared to deal with the extra rain. Now here I'm hoping that the people in the Bronx and Queens and in the areas that were affected by the flooding, I hope they're able to get their life back together pretty quick. I I just hope these cities will start to realize that with the climate crisis and the climate change issues, we're going to need to see changes. You're going to have to do more to build up levees, more to get drainage through your cities, or else this is going to become a daily thing for anybody on the coast. No matter what part of America you're at, if you're on the coast, this is going to start happening more and more if your city and your city council isn't on top of it. So if you're one of those people that are in an area that's constantly flooding and it's only getting worse because of climate change, demand that your city council do something. Demand that your state do something. Call your representatives. Go to your city council meetings and demand that these problems are fixed. Because, I mean, sometimes there's nothing you can do. There's literally nothing you can do for a flood sometimes. But I've been in places where we've had 4 or 5 inches of rain in a day, and parts of the city flooded, but not parts where people actually lived, right? So there are ways around it. and the area that they call the hole, they could definitely use an actual drainage sewage system. Because if you're living close to the coast and you're still living on septic tank, that's not going to get that's not going to get the water out of your area. And that's what many of the people that were in the whole area are connected to, right? Now in the Bronx and in the Queens, of course, the flooding was really bad. So bad that those, you see them on TV. I've never been to New York, but I see them on TV. The apartments that are kind of, or even businesses that are like downstairs, like under, like basically the low level, apartments or businesses or whatever. Those people had to be rescued because there wasn't a lot of warning that it was coming. I have not heard of any fatalities out of it though. From the sounds of it, most everybody is okay, and I think that is definitely a good thing. Now, on to the last story of the day, and a story that kind of shows you how things are different between the left and the right. On the right, if you disagree with Donald Trump right now, you're immediately ostracized and chased out of your seat and primaried and removed. This guy right here, his name is Representative Dean Phillips. He is a representative in the U.S. House from the state of Minnesota. He's a Democrat, but over the weekend he stepped down from all his roles in leadership for the party in the House. Why? Because he disagrees with Joe Biden being president. He believes somebody should primary Joe Biden, that somebody else should be running for the Democratic nomination. And there was a point in time where I agreed with it. I would have agreed that that was the case. Because I wanted somebody younger, right? Somebody that might have people my age or younger in mind. Right? Somebody that wasn't, who isn't 80 plus years old. But you know what? Joe Biden's done a good job. He's gotten a lot done. Has he gotten everything done that I want him to? No. But you know what? I'm going to support Joe Biden. And Dean Phillips here from Minnesota, he possibly wants to mount a primary challenge to Joe Biden. And honestly, I don't see a problem with that. There are a lot of Democrats out there that are going to be mad about it. But a lot of Democrats just aren't going to care because we don't eat our own like that. If you do something wrong, yeah, we're going to come after you. Right? But just because you have a difference of opinion with us doesn't mean we're going to throw you out of the party. He stated the other day, my convictions relative to the 2024 presidential race are incongruent with the majority of my caucus, and I felt appropriate to step aside from elected leadership. And he goes on to say, I celebrate Leader Jeffries and for his remarkable and principled leadership, and extend gratitude to my outstanding friends and colleagues who have created space and a place for my perspectives. I'll continue to abide by my convictions, place people over politics, and support a shared mission to deliver security, opportunity, and prosperity for all Americans. And so I absolutely respect that, right? I absolutely respect the fact that he has his convictions and he believes that somebody else should run, that even he may run against Joe Biden in the primary. The only thing I request from people like Mr. Phillips is because we need other voices out there. We need people to keep the president grounded, right? We need other people to be like, hey, you're still not doing this, or you haven't done this and you need to. I have no problem with people running a primary campaign. If they win, okay. They probably won't. But if they do, okay. We'll deal with that bridge when we come to it. But my only request from Mr. Phillips and anybody else that tries to do a primary against Joe Biden. When the campaign is over, step out of the campaign and hit the ground pushing for Joe Biden. Because we're going to need all the help we can get to keep a Democrat in that White House. I'm absolutely terrified of what happens when the Republicans win the White House again. Because their 2025 plan is terrifying. Their 2025 plan turns America into a dictatorship where the president has all the say-so. Congress doesn't have a say-so. If other people don't have a say-so, just the president. And I do not support such ideas, and I never will. Thank you for watching the Big Rant Show, the real home of progressives, and I'll see you down the road.